We have a couple of factors in play. We have a couple of factors in play here. One is that boats were canceled tomorrow, so folks are preparing to get out of town right now. And number two is that we have some other hearings going on with all the reconciliation stuff, including several of our members are on the Veterans Affairs Committee, and they have a full committee right now hearing with the secretary. So we'll have members that come and go, and I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of knew what was going on. But we have myself and the ranking member here, so I think we'll be good to go. Okay, today we'll hear from our witnesses on the Defense Intelligence Enterprise, or DIE, and how the DIE is postured for fiscal year 2026 and beyond. The Department of Defense is focused on strategic competition, particularly countering the People's Republic of China and ensuring our armed forces have the tools, capabilities, and the training needed to succeed in any environment. But we know the strategic competition is only one of the many challenges our forces are called to address. We must also ensure that we are supporting all the geographic combatant commands to counter whatever threats may arise. Intelligence enables leaders to make informed decisions, especially in an increasingly complex world, thereby enhancing their lethality, survivability, and capability to provide for our nation's defense. Ensuring we have a defense intelligence enterprise that is capable, robust, and synchronized is critical to all of us. This is a challenging task at hand, and one we look forward to working with the department on to make sure that we're accomplishing this. Understanding each of your roles in these efforts will help us ensure your organizations have the capabilities needed and the resources required to accomplish your individual missions. We look forward to hearing from you about DIE, the priorities, the strengths, the challenges, and the ongoing synchronization efforts within the Defense Intelligence Enterprise. I would like to welcome today's witnesses from across the Defense Intelligence Enterprise. Mr. Dustin Gard-Weiss, performing the duties of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. Welcome, sir. Lieutenant General William Hartman, Acting Commander, U.S. Cyber Command, performing the duties of the Director of National Security Agency and Chief Central Security Service. And welcome, General. And lastly, but not least, Lieutenant General Jeffrey Kruse, Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. In the interest of time, I ask that the witnesses will keep their opening remarks to 5 minutes or less so that we have sufficient time for questions and answers. I would also like to point out that we have an open session and a classified session. What we'll do here is we'll, as soon as we're done asking questions, which based on the limited number of members that we have here, could go quickly, we will go immediately to the classified session and get that started. If we go a full hour, then we will break because we have votes scheduled at 4 o'clock, and then we will come back for the classified section in the classified area after votes. With that, let me thank our witnesses again for appearing today, and now I recognize Ranking Member Crowe for any opening remarks he would like to make.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson, and thank you to our witnesses for their testimony today, for coming in and answering our questions as well. The focus of this committee, which is a very bipartisan committee, is on the products and deliverables to the folks downrange. As a former special operator, and there are many who sit on this committee, this is a mission that we take personally that cuts to the men and women who we know, we serve with, and we obviously have a deep obligation to serve. And those of you who are in uniform, I know, share that mission deeply. You've committed your lives to that. But we also know the global security environment is increasingly volatile, and we can't overstate the need for an agile, capable, and synchronized defense intelligence enterprise. Malign actors like China and Russia are adapting their strategies continuously, learning from lessons in Ukraine and fragile places around the world and conflicts that continue to rear up day to day and week by week. That's why the focus of this committee, again, is making sure that we cut through partisanship, that we focus on the deliverables, and that's why I'm also increasingly concerned by some of the proposals and actions of this administration. Some reports of politicizing personnel cuts, of slashing very critical positions, of potentially manipulating intelligence if it doesn't fit a specific narrative. I want to try to get to the bottom of that. We're not going to do that in this hearing because a lot of that's sensitive stuff. So we'll take that up under a closed session. But just to let people know, these are important questions that have to be answered because the men and women who are not here, who we have an obligation to serve, obviously deserve the best materials and the best products. I'm also very concerned by some of the proposed cuts of up to 8% in some of your agencies. You know, I am for government reform. I am a government reformer, and there are always efficiencies. There's always fat to be found. There's always ways of doing something better. But, you know, I've been doing this for a while, and, you know, I know that your agencies are some of the leanest and meanest and most efficient within the government. And an across-the-board arbitrary cut of 8% goes into muscle and bone and not just fat. And the result of that could be an America that's substantially less safe in operators and military around the world that don't get the products and the deliverables that you all are charged with delivering for them. So those are some of the questions. Those are the things on my mind. Again, we want to be productive. We want to make sure that we keep the men and women in uniform foremost on our mind, and just make sure that we work together in a bipartisan way, which is what we always do. That doesn't mean we don't have tough disagreements sometimes. We're no stranger to that here, but again, with the ultimate mission in mind. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. Appreciate that. And I share Mr. Crow's concerns as well about some of the budget cuts and some of the personnel reductions. We both understand how important what you do is to the safety, security of our troops, international security, and we want to make sure that we can do everything we can to make sure that those aren't impacting your mission. With that, we'll now hear from our witnesses, and Mr. Gard-Weiss, we'll begin with you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Jackson, Ranking Member Crow, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. It is a privilege to appear before you, along with my colleagues, to testify on the current posture of the defense intelligence and security enterprise, to confront the array of global threats and challenges facing the United States and our allies and partners. The intelligence and security experts across the Department of Defense work tirelessly to collect, analyze, and address current and future threats in support of the President's priority to achieve peace through strength. These experts comprise the enterprise that provides intelligence-informed insights and options to the Secretary of Defense in support of the Secretary's priorities of restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, and reestablishing deterrence. To that end, the Military Intelligence Program, or MIP, reflects the America First defense policy agenda and strategic priorities of the President and Secretary of Defense, and is developed in close coordination with the Director of National Intelligence. I am joined today by General Joe Hartman, performing the duties of the Director of the National Security Agency, and Lieutenant General Jeff Kruse, the Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. They each will offer their perspectives on how the defense intelligence enterprise is aligned to support our warfighters and speak to the threats that our enterprise must address. Once it is released in the coming weeks, Congress will see how the fiscal year 2026 MIP budget request reflects focused investments in capabilities and initiatives to position the defense intelligence and security enterprise to support the Secretary's 3 priority lines of effort as outlined in his guidance on the development of the 2025 National Defense Strategy. Defend the homeland by providing intelligence support to seal our borders against illegal immigration and narcotics trafficking. Advance America's interests in the Western Hemisphere and enable the Golden Dome, President Trump's next-generation missile shield. Deter China in the Indo-Pacific through a new generation of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities matched to the threat in support of combat-credible military forces in the Western Pacific. Support increased burden sharing with allies and partners to maximize return on investment while ensuring America's interests always come first. The MIP will emphasize rebuilding our military intelligence capabilities by reviving our defense industrial base, reforming acquisition processes, including a greater focus on better informing DoD investments with intelligence and rapidly fielding emerging technologies. It prioritizes investments in American workers and technology while maintaining strategic partnerships with key allies. The MIP will develop and retain critical intelligence capabilities domestically, focusing on American interests to maintain our position as the strongest and most lethal force in the world. I will also note that the MIP will reflect the Secretary's emphasis on strategic discipline and fiscal responsibility, including optimizing and aligning our workforce, and his commitment to passing a financial audit. These and other priorities reflect the enterprise's continuing focus on providing decision advantage against near-peer competitors. In summary, the MIP will support the department's ability to execute its programs needed to address these global challenges, and your support is critical to achieving the President's vision of peace through strength and ensuring that our intelligence capabilities remain second to none. I thank the subcommittee for its leadership and support, and I look forward to answering your questions here and in our closed session.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And General Hartman, you're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Jackson, Ranking Member Crowe, and distinguished members of the committee, I'm honored to be here today representing the men and women of the National Security Agency and United States Cyber Command. Thank you for this opportunity to testify before you today with my Department of Defense Intelligence Enterprise colleagues. At the National Security Agency, our workforce supports our policymakers by providing unique, timely, and exquisite insights for the nation's top priorities. As a combat support agency, we provide critical support to our warfighters in encountering a multitude of threats facing the nation today and in the future. The men and women of both Cyber Command and NSA are key to our mission success and serve as a competitive advantage across all of our mission sets. China remains our pacing threat. Countering their efforts to challenge the United States as well as their aggression in the Indo-Pacific is a top priority. U.S. Cyber Command and NSA are focused on using the full scope of our authorities and full spectrum capability to counter China's aggression. We remain ready and postured to contest China's malicious activities across the globe in lockstep with our allies and our U.S. government and industry partners. U.S. Cyber Command and NSA remain focused on achieving mission success across the spectrum of the President's priorities relayed to us in the Interim National Defense Strategic Guidance. In developing our FY26 budget request, in partnership with the Department of Defense and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, NSA is focused on administration priorities, including defending the homeland, modernizing our capabilities, as well as our core function of code making and code breaking. As examples, both organizations have taken comprehensive and concrete actions in support of Homeland Defense, including improving our support to U.S. government disruption activities with cartels operating in Mexico and along the southern border, and in the development of Golden Dome for America. Our nation is confronted with an increasingly complex and dynamic threat landscape in the cyber domain. However, I want to ensure you that U.S. Cyber Command and NSA are at the forefront of this challenge, armed with unparalleled capabilities and insights that place us at an advantage against our most formidable adversaries. Our dedicated professionals are actively defending the nation, including the defense industrial base, from sophisticated nation-state actors and cyber attacks. We are not merely reacting to intrusions. We are proactively identifying and analyzing the tools and tradecraft our adversaries are sharing. These critical discoveries, we share these critical discoveries publicly and will partner with our partners to empower a collective defense that strengthens our nation. I know this committee is highly supportive of our missions and our people, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to testify in front of you today.
Thank you, General. I appreciate that. And General Kruse, the floor is yours.
Chairman Jackson, Ranking Member Crowe, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to present the Defense Intelligence Agency's assessment of the worldwide threats to our nation and our posture to address these increasingly complex challenges. DIA is dedicated to providing not only the warfighter, the acquisition community, and the senior administration officials with timely and accurate intelligence, but also to the Congress to assist in your role in countering threats to the United States. The men and women of DIA in 140 nations around the globe are focused every day on delivering intelligence that strengthens defense of the U.S. homeland, enhances warfighter lethality, supports effective and efficient acquisition and countermeasure development, counters foreign intelligence entities attempting to steal U.S. information or penetrate our networks and supply chains, and increases mission sharing and interoperability with trusted U.S. allies and partners. Our efforts are more timely and more important than ever. The current threat landscape is changing more rapidly than at any time in my 35 years in uniform. Our adversaries are deepening cooperation with each other across multiple domains and developing and proliferating advanced technologies which generate novel methods to threaten our interests. Starting in the U.S. homeland, we face a twofold threat. First, along our southern borders, transnational criminal organizations, drug traffickers, and terrorist groups are attempting to circumvent host nation laws and evade U.S. law enforcement, including by exploiting migration flows, to conduct activities aimed at harming U.S. citizens. Our longstanding cooperation with U.S. law enforcement agencies has enabled DIA to respond quickly, and DIA has surged analytic, collection, scientific, and technical capabilities to support U.S. Northcom, U.S. Southcom, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, and the FBI. Second, our adversaries are pursuing technological advances to improve their ability to directly threaten the U.S. homeland with military capabilities, including expanding the scale and sophistication of their conventional and nuclear-capable missile systems. China and Russia are building a diverse array of delivery systems to exploit gaps in current U.S. ballistic missile defenses. They are developing hypersonic glide vehicles, as well as fractional orbital bombardment systems, which are ICBMs that enter a low-altitude orbit before re-entering to strike targets. DIA is currently providing the authoritative intelligence assessments to assist the department in designing and deploying the necessary defenses to support the Golden Dome for America initiative. And during the future operational phase, DIA will provide collection, sensor networks, data fusion, and operational support to detect and counter strategic missile threats to the homeland. Our priority threat, as described in the interim National Defense Strategic Guidance, is China. The Chinese Communist Party is rapidly developing military capabilities across all warfare domains: air, land, sea, space, and cyber. And all of these are designed to seize Taiwan by force while preventing intervention by the United States or other third parties. Along its periphery, China is executing multi-domain pressure campaigns against the Philippines, Taiwan, and others that resist its territorial claims. In response, our China Mission Group stood up in 2022 to synchronize DIA and enterprise analysis, collection, and intelligence operations against the global China threat. And since then, numerous intelligence disciplines have increased collection by at least 30% against China, and we have brought new collection and exploitation capabilities online. DIA has also increased analytic production by double digits, and through our Machine-Assisted Analytic Rapid Repository System, or MARS, and the Common Intelligence Picture efforts, we are delivering next-generation foundational military intelligence to the warfighter, and soon will deliver real-time, authoritative, force-tracking data layers to enable all-domain, AI-enabled battle space awareness, warning, and sensor-to-shooter capabilities. Additionally, China's advancements in AI, biotechnology, quantum sciences, and microelectronics are heightening the threat environment and positioning Beijing to dominate a range of advanced and emerging technologies that are foundational to military innovation. Beijing is working to integrate AI into a variety of military capabilities, including uncrewed systems, decision support systems, ISR, cyber, and influence operations. And to meet this challenge, DIA is redesigning its collection strategies and enhancing MASIT, human, and open source capabilities, ensuring that we stay ahead of emerging threats and technological advances. Regarding other threat actors, Russia remains a significant, aggressive, and enduring threat to the United States and its neighbors. Moscow has remained steadfast in its demands for Ukrainian neutrality, authority over the size of Ukraine's armed forces, and is a further partitioning of the Ukrainian state. Russia will continue its military strategy of attrition, focused on degrading Ukraine's ability and will to resist while facing its own significant losses of equipment and personnel. With this threat environment in mind, I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide our insights and our perspectives during our discussions today. It's an honor to join my colleagues, Mr. Gard-Weiss and Lieutenant General Hartman, before this subcommittee. I'm truly privileged to lead the Defense Intelligence Agency and represent its talented and dedicated workforce who serve with distinction and in harm's way all across the globe. We're grateful for your support, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General. I appreciate that. And we will begin questions, and I will start by recognizing myself. Mr. Gard-Weiss, I was just going to ask you a real quick question here. I'll just read this real quick because some of our audience may not fully appreciate this, but the U.S. intelligence community is statutorily comprised of 18 organizations, 9 of which are elements of the Department of Defense. The Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, U.S. Air Force Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance, U.S. Army Intelligence, U.S. Naval Intelligence, U.S. Marine Corps Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Enterprise, and U.S. Space Force Intelligence. That's a big piece of the pie. I would like to ask you, and I won't say, are you getting everything that you need? Because the question of that answer is usually no, but do you think that your piece of the pie of the DoD budget is sufficient to do what you're being asked to do today?
Chairman, thank you for the question. I am incredibly proud of the work that our enterprise does today in support of the Department of Defense, our warfighters, our commanders, the Secretary, and the President. The threat environment that we're facing is increasingly complex. You mentioned in your opening statement that we're facing China, the pacing threat, while we're responding to events around the world. Right now, what I can tell you is that we're postured and aligned to support the priorities of the Secretary. And I look forward to having a conversation with you once we're able to discuss the details of the FY26 budget about the areas where we're taking risk and where we are aligning those resources to ensure that we are taking less risk in priority areas.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll do everything I can, and I know the other members of this committee as well, to make sure that you have everything you need, because our warfighters obviously can't do their jobs without the support that you provide. For General Kruse and General Hartman, I just want to ask you a real quick question. I think you both touched on this or mentioned this in passing. I know, General Kruse, you did with regards to China in your opening statement. But with regards to, this is partly why I asked this question as well, because we understand that the big focus in the military for the last few years has been to pivot and to great power competition away from counterterrorism, so on and so forth. But we also understand, and General Kruse and I recently talked about this, that the counterterrorism mission did not go away. It's still there. That support still has to be provided. But then you have other things that are also, really gaining, I'm sure, taking lots and lots of your time as they become more and more a part of your day-to-day expectations and what you're gonna have to deal with regards in particular to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and now open source intelligence. Can you tell me, are we keeping up with that, and in what ways are you approaching that so that we don't get behind the Chinese on this? What is your biggest hurdle here? I mean, what are you not getting, or what is your biggest concern regarding what I just mentioned in the day-to-day conduct of your mission? I'll start with either one. General Hartman, you want to start?
Chairman, thanks for the question. From our standpoint, we continue to be laser focused on China, and our plan to meet that threat is really dependent on technology like artificial intelligence. We know the Chinese forces are larger than us, and the way that we scale to meet that challenge is by leveraging the talent of our workforce and the technology that we have access to, particularly our relationship with private industry, which in the United States, we still have a strategic advantage as it relates to technology like artificial intelligence, and I believe that will continue to remain so.
Okay, before we go to General Kruse, I was just going to ask you real quick. So, do you think are you having any issues with recruiting people? I mean, I know that's always an issue, but are you getting good people that understand these issues that want to come into the organization versus going off into the private sector? And are there any authorities that you don't have? I mean, it's going to cost more money. Obviously, we understand that. But are there any authorities that you need from Congress that you don't have to stay on top of this and outpace the Chinese on this?
Chairman, we continue to get extraordinarily qualified young people from the services and from the civilian community that are experts in artificial intelligence and high-performance computing and machine learning. We certainly need the resources to provide them the technology that they need to work the problem. We've got a great plan for that. I think we'll be able to talk about that plan more when the budget comes out. But right now, I believe that we're very well positioned. We have a roadmap thanks to our work with Congress. We have stood up an artificial intelligence task force. We've executed over a dozen pilots. And I do believe we are positioned well. From an authority standpoint, there are really no authorities that we don't have right now in order to execute this plan.
Thank you, sir. General Kruse, do you have anything to add on that?
Just very briefly, I will just echo what General Hartman said. The workforce at DIA, we prioritized in the most recent series of personnel reductions and workforce optimization, the retention of our younger probationary and recently recruited personnel because of the skills that they bring. And I think that will pay dividends for us in the long run. To your earlier question about where are we balancing and how are we taking risk, what I would offer is, as the department writ large and as the nation writ at large focuses on the priorities that are articulated appropriately by the administration. There is a need for a minimum capability to reside in the low priority theaters against counterterrorism, and I think that's the intelligence community's responsibility to be able to continue to collect at a certain level, to be able to give policymakers the opportunity to address those threats should they arise. And so for me, it is the challenge that we have is how do you balance the remaining capability on the lower priority systems while we move out extraordinarily aggressively. And I think when you see the 26 budget come forward, you'll see DIA and the administration reaching heavily into the current priorities. And we look forward to additional conversation of how those will balance in closed session.
Thank you, General. I appreciate it.